there friends, and thanks for joining me, and today we're going to be building a raised garden bed. So I have everything cut out and I'm just about to lay things out, but I really wanted to talk to you about the sizes and shapes and things before we get started, because obviously you can change this design to whatever you would prefer, but again, make sure it's something that's easy to reach across. So the deck boards that I actually got on Craigslist were 8 feet long, and I don't want to have any waste, because when we buy materials, if we end up with a design that actually creates waste, that not only makes it to where it's a burden on the environment to have created that material just to end up throwing it away, but then also it's in the landfill and that sort of stuff. Plus it's also not efficient because we pay for this stuff based on a linear foot, so we're paying for material that we just end up throwing away anyway. So because it was an 8-foot board this time, I decided to have a couple of different designs for the garden beds in my new garden area. I did 8 feet long, so the whole length of the board, and then I did 4 feet wide on some of the larger beds, and then 2.5 feet long on some of the smaller beds that are on the outside. So I did 2 smaller beds on the outsides, which are actually up against fences, which is why I chose the smaller beds, so that they would be easy to reach across from just one side. And then 2 4-foot beds in the center, because there's walkways around either side, so you can reach them from either side. Hopefully that makes sense. If we would have chosen, say, to make them 3 feet apart, that would have created extra waste, because we would have taken an 8-foot board, cut off 3 feet, and then another 3 feet, and then end up with a 2-foot cutoff. You see what I'm saying? I was trying to make it efficient. Last time I built them, I actually had 12-foot boards, so what I did is I took 3 feet and cut it off so that the beds were 9 feet by 3 feet, so it took exactly 2 boards to build one garden bed, and that was a good design as well. So kind of work with the materials you have and then make it to where you can, make it as efficiently as possible and that as few materials get wasted as possible. This is what my deck board actually looks like. I wish I had the sticker with me right now. Maybe I'll go get it and show it in a second. But basically, this is composite decking. It's rated for 20 years to not fade or any, crack or any of that stuff. And having made my garden beds last time with the composite material, I'm really happy with this stuff. It really does wear very well, and it'll last a really long time. So I know that this is going to last, and it's going to be worth the expense that we're paying up front. And then also, all this work that we're doing isn't going to have to just be redone later on, so it's a good investment all around. In addition to having the decking, because you don't want to just screw these together though, we do have to have some kind of supports. So in the corners of the deck, I'm actually using this cedar 4x4. This is just a material I already had around, so I didn't even have to buy this. And then in the centers, I'm actually using just some regular 2x4s. And you'll see that in a second when I get things laid out. So the garden box that we're actually going to be making right now is an 8-foot by 2-foot bed, 2.5 feet, excuse me, an 8-foot by 2.5-foot bed. And so let's go ahead and get started laying it out and building it right now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is actually lay out the sides, and I'm doing that because I want the thing to be longer than it is wide rather than wider than it is long. So this is just a size preference. You could also do the sides first and then the lengths, but I'm doing it the opposite, and I'll show you what the actual result is, and then you can choose based on which one actually works for you. I just take the supports and I stick them underneath here. The supports are actually 9 inches, and the reason I did that was just to be as efficient as possible again with the lumber. So I'm going to go ahead and lay these out and then make them as flat as I can on both the bottom and the sides. Then in the center of the board, because it does tend to hang down and that makes it harder to screw on either side, I actually take the supports that are actually going to go on the deck this way, but I put them this way so that the whole length of the deck board is actually level and flat, which makes it a lot easier to screw the boards onto the sides. Okay, so here's what they look like all laid out. Basically, they're supposed to be as flat as they can be to the top all the way across, well, the ends anyway, we're not screwing in the centers. And then what is going to be the bottom of the garden bed is actually going to the inside, and what's going to be the top of the garden bed is actually to the outside. So the next thing we do once we get everything all lined up is we're going to screw these in together. You can use anywhere from 2 to 4 screws. It totally depends on how many screws you have available and just how many you want to use. You can either choose to sink them, or you can just make them flush, whatever look you're going for. There you go. And now I'm just going to go around and screw them in on all of the 4 corners. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is stand this up on its top so that we can actually attach the bottom sections, attach the side sections. Okay, so the next thing is going to be to attach the sides. When I'm doing mine, I'm actually making it to where the fronts, you can actually see the reveal of the side of the boards. If you did not want to see this from the fronts of the beds, what you would do is actually, again, do this in the opposite of the way that I am actually doing it. You would have attached the side boards first to the support beams and then bring these ones to the other side so that you would actually see the side of the board on this side rather than on the fronts. So yeah, the design that you choose will affect the aesthetics of it, but for size, this is actually the way that actually works better for the space that I'm actually going to be putting them. So these just get attached in exactly the same way. Try and line it up and make sure it's all flat and everything is even, and just screw them in. Real simple. Okay, so now that we basically have the box built, all we have to do is attach the side supports. Alright, there it is, friends, all built. All we have to do is flip it over and it's ready. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is install it, which is actually pretty straightforward if we're doing it on open ground. If we're doing it on something like grass, we would obviously have to get rid of the grass. I'm actually doing it over here in some rock area, so I have to pull back the rock. But if you're doing it in open ground, what you would basically do is get it in the spot where you want to put it, and then dig holes where all of these support beams are, and then basically drop it down until it's level with the soil. We do want to measure corner to corner to make sure it's pretty even, or within 1/8 of an inch to make sure it is exactly a rectangle and it hasn't, you know, become a diamond shape-ish. And then we also want to make sure it's straight. So this board is a little bit bent, so we would want to pull that out, make sure that's straight when we go to put it in. And then after you dig your holes, get everything in place where it is, where it needs to be, and everything is, you know, square. Then we'll go ahead and backfill around these support beams, and then this will actually be level with the soil line. So then we fill it with our soil and our garden bed is complete. So thanks for joining me on this really simple garden bed design and for building it along with me. Hopefully this is helpful to you. So anyway, I'm Frugal Green Girl. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Here's a quick peek at them, my friends. A whole lot of them. I just finished building all of these, and so now I need to get installing them. Pulling back all this rock that's in the center of them, digging the holes for all of the posts. Whew, they're roughly where they need to go. I obviously have to measure and make sure they're all lined up perfectly, because that's not. And yeah, get them installed. And it's only getting hotter by the minute, so I guess I better get started. Anybody want to come help me?